Welcome to another edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy, the NFL Week 5 edition of the show. Ian Cameron, and joined once again by Philip Nelson. We thought we'd have Philip on a couple of times already this football season, but sometimes life gets in the way and things come up and you get busy. And that's exactly what it's been for Philip, but he's back with us here on this Week 5 edition. Of course, we saw him a bunch, did a great job with the college football and NFL season preview videos that we did back in the summer in July and August. And now he's finally back making his return here on the Football Frenzy. Philip, how are you?
I'm doing great. Like Ian said, it's been a hell of a last 5 weeks here. Just traveling all over the country, work and all that. I have been paying attention to the games, but I'm excited to be back. And I think we have a really good Week 5 ahead of us. So I'm excited to chat it up.
Before we get into the games coming up this week, we'll go as we always do every NFL week and every NFL game on the board the upcoming week here on this show. We'll break it down. Just some overall thoughts because we haven't had a chance to get your thoughts on what you've seen so far in the NFL to this point. Now entering Week 5, teams that have surprised you in a good way or in a bad way. What's some of the things and observations that have stuck out to Philip Nelson early in the year?
You know what? I will say I'm not super surprised by this, but Sam Darnold and the Vikings, man. I mean, I've always been a huge just believer in, a quarterback needs a system. Obviously, I've played quarterback and everything, but Sam Darnold with the Jets and the Panthers, I mean, he just never really had a fair shake. And I feel like with those Vikings weapons, he has utilized that to the fullest. And Kevin O'Connell with his play calling, I mean, he's a genius. So I think the Vikings have been I think surprising to the world, but I'm not shocked that they're sitting at 4-0 right now. I think that's one of the main ones that sticks out to me. Let's talk about some other ones here. Buccaneers, I think the Buccaneers have been looking very good. That's a team that's, I think the NFC South, we kind of wrote off for a while there. But I think actually the Buccaneers are looking like a pretty solid team as well. Baker Mayfield, once again, he gets a chance with, some weapons and things like that. The Lions, geez, that offense is absolutely lethal. They're going to be a problem as well. The NFC North is looking, as strong as we were anticipating. Eagles, super disappointed in the Eagles. You know what I mean? And, gosh, I really thought that Kellen Moore was going to get that offense rolling a little bit more, but geez, they opened up, last Sunday with seven passes out of 9, or 7 passes on the first 9 plays. I mean, Saquon's your best player. So, I think those are kind of the main storylines that are sticking out to me right now.
You picked a lot of good ones, and I think Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings are right up there with how great they have been. I think Jaden Daniels in Washington, what the Commanders have done has certainly, and we kind of hinted at that because you were with me for the NFC East. That was one of your videos. We talked NFC East. We opened the door for Dan Quinn in Washington and Jaden Daniels, maybe the surprise, maybe be better than people thought. And I'm happy for Cliff Kingsbury because he got run out of there in Arizona when things didn't go well. He got fired. He ends up getting the offensive coordinator spot here in Washington, a chance to work with a rookie quarterback with lots of talent like Jaden Daniels. I think his play calling has been great so far. They've run it with Robinson. They've mixed the Daniels quarterback runs RPO as well. McLaurin's really stepped up, been great at receiver for them. And they've just really had different looks, different formations on offense. They're keeping opposing defenses off balance. He's really done a nice job now getting this opportunity. And you can tell he probably spent the whole week. He probably didn't get a wink of sleep last week getting ready for that Arizona game. The team that fired him. You think he's cranked up to send a little humble pie and a little revenge slice to the Arizona?
They've scored 20 on 20 of their last 22 possessions, not including kneel downs. I mean, that's incredible. And what Jaden Daniels is throwing 82%, something like that. I mean, what a team. You know what I will say now, it makes my little bet. I remember the bet I made on the NFC East going Eagles, Cowboys, Commanders, Giants. I mean, oh man, I think the Commanders might be surpassing the Cowboys there. And I mean, who knows what's going on with the Eagles. So that's going to be a fun division to watch.
The Eagles need to get fucking healthy. That's what they need right now because they're banged up. They've been without, obviously, Brown and Smith receiver Lane Johnson. I'm sick of seeing this guy show up on the injury report every week.
Right?
What an Eagle fan. If I feel that way, could you imagine how Eagles fans feel?
Yeah.
Lane Johnson on the injury report multiple times a season, and sure enough, he's injured again. One of their most critical offensive linemen. So, yeah, definitely they've had some struggles and inconsistencies out of the gate. The bye week's already coming at a good time for them, though, with some of the injuries they've had. All right, week 5. Let's get into it. We'll begin with a really interesting game here on Thursday Night Football, Amazon Prime, to get things going. Tampa Bay, Atlanta, NFC South battle. The Falcons, 2.5-point home favorites, 44 the total here in this game. So last week I cashed, and it was by far my best NFL week. We crushed it last week, and I needed it because it's been an up and down first three weeks going into last week. It had really been up and down results for me to start the year, which is not atypical, Philip, of the way the season starts for me. Usually I do start a little slow out of the gate with NFL and college in September, and then we get into October, November. We start to really get a real strong feel and gauge for how good or bad these teams are, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. And I find I do better as the season goes on. Well, last week it was a great week. We cashed, the majority of the bets. A lot of the best bets were winners. One of them that I won was Atlanta against New Orleans. Now, I will say I think it was a wrong side winner. I thought they were very fortunate to win that game against New Orleans. They took advantage of a Saints muffed punt that they recovered in the end zone early in the game. They bogged down in the red zone consistently in that game against New Orleans. They still had trouble getting the run game going consistently, which was kind of surprising because we know how good Bijan Robinson can be. But they had all kinds of issues just finishing drives and executing in the red zone especially. And then on defense, there's Derek Carr and the Saints going up and down the field most of that game against them, and including with the game on the line, Atlanta couldn't get the stop. New Orleans goes down the field when they're down by 6. They punch it in. They go up by 1 with a minute to go. Unfortunately for New Orleans, the sin they made there was keeping too much time on the clock for Atlanta. And you could say, well, the Falcons went down the field and drove down and put themselves in position to kick the game-winning field goal. Well, it was helped by a pass interference penalty. And then once they got the PI penalty on New Orleans, they didn't really move it any further, and they needed like an incredible 60-yard kick almost from Younghoe Koo, the great kicker there for Atlanta, and he drilled it. So I'll take it. Atlanta money line cashes in, but boy, they didn't. I thought New Orleans outplayed them actually in that game. So I'm kind of feel fortunate that they won that game, and I was able to cash that bet. I'm a little worried about them here. Now, Tampa does have some injuries. D-line, I don't think Antoine Winfield is going to play in their secondary, and we know what kind of a great player he is going back to his college days. That does hurt a little bit. But I don't know about Atlanta and the matchup for their offense with Kirk Cousins. He's still clearly hobbled, Philip, by the Achilles. You can tell the mobility is really not all there for Kirk. And the one thing Tampa does is they blitz third most in the NFL this year. And that's a concern because Atlanta's had a suspect offensive line. They've had some injuries, too, on their own offensive line so far this year. And Kirk Cousins doesn't have great mobility. The O-line's nothing to write home about. And now you're going to be facing this Bucs team that really likes to bring extra pressure.
Right.
That could be trouble for this Atlanta team maybe in the matchup here a little bit. Now, I know it's a road team traveling on a short week. Usually that's not always a positive on a Thursday night, but it's more so a negative for the rookie coaches. Like we saw Gerard Mayo in this spot a couple weeks ago when they played the Jets on the road on a Thursday night, and they were in over their head. Right. But usually the more experienced coaches can fare better taking their team on the road on a Thursday night and dealing with all the shit that you deal with a short week. Game planning on the fly, trying to heal injuries and players, giving them rest, a balance between rest and practice, going from a Sunday to a Thursday, all that shit. Veteran coaches can organize it a little better. Right. So I don't think it's as bad a spot as it would be for, say, New England a couple weeks ago. And I still think Tampa Bay might be the better of these two teams. I did grab a little +3. I think Tampa Bay's 7-3 straight up in ATS the last 10 meetings against Atlanta. They've played well against the Falcons. I did take +3 at minus and laid a little price at -130 to take Tampa at +3 instead of the +2.5. I also have Tampa in some teasers, some 6-point teasers. And we talk about this, Philip, with the NFL. If you're going to play teasers, you want to play the teams that are like that 1 to 2.5 point dog so that you can tease them up past 7, get them at 7.5, 8, 8.5 as a dog. Right. And I've done that with Tampa Bay on a few teasers. I think the matchup dictates we could see this game go over, but the real concern I have with that is Thursday night football has been an under machine, you know, for as long as I can remember. And this year already, depending on the number you got, Kansas City, Baltimore may have gone over the total for you on the first night of the year, the first Thursday of the year, depending on what number you got with the total. But other than that, it's been 3 slam dunk unders in the other Thursday night games this year. Buffalo, Miami stayed way under. Jets and Patriots stayed way under. Last week, you know, with that Civ Dallas defense, I thought that game could go over, but no, it's Thursday night.
Yeah.
It stayed under with the Cowboys and the Giants last week. So these Thursday night games just keep going under. So the matchup points to the over, but gosh, Thursday nights have just been where overs go to die. And so from that standpoint, it's tough to get there with the over here. Philip, what do you think? It's a good one on Thursday night, Tampa, Atlanta.
It's tough. I mean, it's funny. I was talking to my buddy earlier about this because, you know, I'm trying to play some bets here. And we're trying to figure out, I mean, is this going to be a high-scoring game? Is this going to be a low-scoring? Because, I mean, we clearly have two, you know, offenses that could explode if they want. And that was my one concern right off the bat was Thursday night football. I mean, not a lot of time to prepare, injuries, you know, et cetera, all that. So I really like what you're saying about Buccaneers, you know, taking them, you know, +3, +2.5. Geez, I almost think Buccaneers outright, even, you know, at this point, you know, as well. Like you said,
I should point out, Philip, with the dogs, like for this bet, for this game, and any underdog that I bet, I'll bet the point plus the points, but I'll always have some kind of percentage on the money line as well. Every single underdog, even the ones that are like +14 or +17 in college football, I'll still sprinkle on the money line, but just for a lesser percentage. But I'll always have some kind of smaller percentage on the money line. Every underdog I bet. And the reason for that is because why would you bet the underdog if you don't think there's at least some sliver of chance they can win the game?
Exactly. And that's kind of where I'm coming from with taking them outright as well. But you know, man, my gut, like, I mean, there's a few other picks this week that we'll get to, but just when you think you have things figured out, oh, it's going to be under, I'm hoping that this could be an explosion game too, you know? So, you know, we'll see what happens here, but yeah, I think, like you were saying with the Buccaneers, I like taking them in this game. And I think that Baker's hot, Mike Evans doing his thing. You know, I like the Buccaneers here.
It's the Monday night games. Like primetime NFL games under have been a strong trend now for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But the Monday night games this year are the games that have been kind of going over. That's been the one night where we've seen some overs. Like both Monday night games this week went over. Tennessee, Miami, and of course Seattle. And I love the over in Seattle, Detroit.
Yeah.
Monday night, it flew over the total. That Seattle defense, Fugazi stats, because you played Bo Nix and you played Jacoby Brissett and you played Tim Boyle and Skylar Thompson combo against Miami. That's what Seattle played as far as opposing quarterbacks in the first 3 games. They finally played Jared Goff and a real offense and a real quarterback. And what happened that night? They got over 40.
Yeah. So 500 yards for Geno almost.
Yeah, exactly. But that defense finally played a good offense, and we see they struggled. But the Monday night games have been going over. But again, the Thursday night continues to trend under the total. All right, let's go to Sunday, and we start with our first Europe game of the season and our first London NFL game. This is 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. You'll be eating this with breakfast in the NFL, I guess you could say. The New York, and it's a good one. New York Jets, Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota 2.5-point favorites, 40 the total. This game's at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium over in London, England. Look, the obvious storyline going into this game is Sam Darnold revenge game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because here he is facing the Jets where they cast him aside. They gave up on him. Now, he was terrible there. He was with the New York Jets. But, again, and Philip kind of mentioned this when he brought up the Vikings' resurgence this year and Sam Darnold's resurgence, poorly coached with the Jets, terrible offensive line when he was with the Jets, not many weapons on offense to work with. He just didn't have the pieces around him to put him in a position for success when he was with the New York Jets. Now you see him get this new opportunity with a great offensive-minded head coach and Kevin O'Connell. You know, you can tell he's just a really good head coach. He's young, he's our age. You know, he really is our age. Like he's certainly mine. He's like late 30s. He's very young still. He just retired from being a quarterback himself, just a few years ago. He was basically a backup quarterback most of his career. But, he connects with the players. You can see it in some of the post-game locker room speeches that he's had. And he's just got a very diverse offense. And he's put Sam Darnold, and he game plans to put Sam Darnold in positions to succeed. And it doesn't hurt either that this is a better offensive line for Sam in Minnesota than it ever was with the Jets. Mm-hmm. And you've got Justin Jefferson, one of the absolute best receivers to work with down the field in the passing game. Look, typical Robert Saleh, man, last week. I'm not even shocked anymore with that loss to the Denver Broncos. That's such a Jet loss. You can't believe it. But you can, because it's the New York Jets. To have the game you had against New England, the Thursday night, extra time to prepare because you have 10 days off. You play Sunday at home against Denver. And to have that team not prepared like Saleh did, I know Rodgers had a bad day. I know Breece Hall did nothing running the football. I know that defense is still a little bit overrated because they still don't stop the run in critical times of the game. Denver was running the football down their throat in the fourth quarter, and that was a problem they had against San Francisco, Philip, in week 1. Jets couldn't stop the run, the first game of the year. There's still issues there, but that's coaching as to why they were that hapless. You're not better prepared than that. 16 penalties for the New York Jets in that game. 16. Many of them were false starts, holding penalties, illegal man downfield, taunting penalties. Alan Lazard, even, who's a veteran, he should know better. He does the little, he's spin-a-rama on the football after a big first down right in front of a Denver player, flagged for taunting. When they were at the 1-yard line, it puts them back to the 16 after the penalty, and they have to settle for a field goal. That's stupid shit, and that's Saleh right there. That's coaching. It's not having your team disciplined. It's not having your team ready to play. I lay it at the feet of him more than anybody else for that game against Denver.
100%
last week, 100%. And they've had so many of those games like that under his watch here with the New York Jets. But this is that classic NFL spot where everyone now is just so outraged about how pathetic the Jets were at home against Denver, a team everyone thought they should have beat. And now everyone's going to jump ship, take Minnesota in this game. Mm-hmm. And I'm not betting against Minnesota. I'll just say that flat out. No way. But I'm not giddy to make this my best bet either on Minnesota, because I think the Jets, believe it or not, they'll be bet. Now they're catching points. They're not laying points now as a favorite. But at the end of the day, I mean, I've got O'Connell, to me, I trust a lot more than Saleh. That defense, you can run on it. And don't forget, they have Aaron Jones now, the former Green Bay Packer, and he's looked very good running the football early in the season. And that's taken pressure off Sam Darnold in the passing game with the balance that Minnesota's had on offense. So for me, this is Vikings or pass, and I'll probably will get there with a small bet on Minnesota, but this is that typical NFL situation where sometimes you get the team that looked awful the week before stepping up and playing a whole lot better. And we know the Jets, talent-wise, their best game is capable of winning this game. Absolutely it is. But can Rodgers play better? Can Breece Hall where's Breece Hall? Can't find him with a telescope on the football field this year. I'm so disappointed with what he's been doing. And if you think I'm mad, how about the fantasy owners that took him? I mean, my goodness, they thought he was going to have this big year running the football with this better offensive line that the Jets were supposed to have. Hasn't happened so far. This total's tricky, but I would lean on to, because Minnesota's defense, people aren't talking about how much better. I didn't expect this from Minnesota's defense to be this much better. But Brian Flores, the new DC, has really done a great job. Shows you what a good coach he was, what a great hire it was by Kevin O'Connell to bring in Brian Flores as the defensive coordinator, because he's done a great job. This was not a good Minnesota defense last year or the year before, and they're leaps and bounds better on that side of the football so far this year. Philip, what do you think for London, England, Sunday morning, Jets, Vikings?
This will be our first disagreement, because I have a weird gut feeling the Jets, their world's turning upside down. And you know what? Watching Aaron Rodgers, every time that happens, and, all of a sudden you think everything's just going to go haywire, he somehow turns it around. I think London's a great distraction for the Vikings. I mean, it's a distraction for both of them, obviously, traveling. Nobody wants to do that. But, man, I tell you what, I just feel like in the NFL this year, there's been a few of those games where you just think there's no way. And, I just think the Jets have been so bad that they have no choice but to fix this and fix it now. And so I think they're going to be hyper focused. I think the Vikings might be feeling really good about themselves. They might take the foot off the gas a little bit. Man, I'll take the Jets 2.5. And I think that this could be like a 21-20 type game. So I'm also going to take the over on this one. And that's actually one that I will lock in as a bet. I just have this weird feeling, man.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. The contrarian viewpoint often pays dividends in the NFL. It really does. You can see it. I remember Denver started 0-2. Tampa had beaten Detroit the week before. And then 2 weeks ago, Denver goes to Tampa. There's not a lot of people that were on that Denver bandwagon. And what happened? Denver went to Tampa, and wire to wire, they just controlled the game. From start to finish. One outright is a 7-point dog.
Yeah.
So that tells you all you need to know. Sometimes you can't trust what you last saw.
The only thing that makes me a little bit nervous about that take is that I do think Sam Darnold's going to be ready to fucking play against the Jets.
Yeah, the revenge narrative's big time. Yeah.
That's why I think I'm going to take the over here, because I think there's no way the Jets are going to lay another egg offensively. I just think that Rodgers is going to get that shit put together. So
the last thing I'll say about the total, because now it's getting to the point where I probably lean over too, now that it's only at 40. Check the weather and the field conditions. You never know in that soccer stadium there if the field is going to be, if the footing is going to be good.
Yeah, they're going to be slipping.
I saw that Brazil game, Philip. That was a disaster. That's a disgrace. The NFL put a game there with that. It's got nothing to do with Brazil. Lovely that they're putting a football game there, but in that stadium on that field, that was pathetic. Yeah. Packers and Eagles players were falling down on their keisters, slipping and sliding everywhere. You clumps of grass and mud coming up. That was terrible footing, terrible field conditions.
Yeah.
That's what I worry about a little bit here in London as well.
Same. Check the weather.
Yep, absolutely. And remember, this is Thursday when we record this, so there's still a couple days and things can change as far as the weather, especially in a place like London, England. All right, back on this side of the pond, Carolina, Chicago. Chicago, 3.5-point home favorites, 41 the total. Cashed a ticket, Philip, last week with Chicago against the Rams. I thought coming off the big comeback against San Francisco, and then you got the Rams traveling to the Midwest for an early start game on Sunday, kind of a tough spot for them. Yet they were in that game, but they just made some mistakes, a couple turnovers, a couple of big plays that Chicago was able to hit on offense. I still think their offensive line is terrible.
Yeah.
It's been their issue all year. It's like, okay, you got Caleb Williams, you drafted him. You got DJ Moore and Keenan Allen and, all these great weapons at receiver, Rome Odunze. And yet you've got such a shit offensive line, and that's the thing. You can't play with your toys, if the material doesn't work, to make those toys. And that's the thing. The material is the offensive line, in my opinion. Yeah. And it's not good enough right now for the Chicago Bears. Now, they beat the Rams in spite of that, and their defense is solid. Let's give Chicago's defense credit. The Rams moved the ball a bunch on the Bears, but every time the Rams got down in the red zone, Matthew Stafford and company they either turned it over or they were kept out of the end zone. I think they only had one touchdown in the red zone last week, the Rams. So the Bears' defense is good. And you want to compare defenses, there is no comparison. Chicago is just a much, 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 much better defensive team. Carolina has just been chewed up and spit out on the defensive side of the football. There's no pass rush. Brian Burns got traded to the Giants. They don't have the same pass rush. The secondary is horrible. Joe Burrow and the Bengals just absolutely picked apart that Carolina defense last week in getting their first game of the year. It's kind of weird because for the total here, 41, I've basically looked at Chicago as kind of an under team, but there's no way I'm betting a Carolina game under the total. I can't. Right. Because their offense is better with Andy Dalton at quarterback. The Red Rifle, say what you will about, he's got some flaws. He's a hell of a lot better than anything we saw to Bryce Young earlier this season. So, and you've seen it against Las Vegas and Cincinnati. They can at least move the football, Carolina now, and put up points. But their defense is still pretty bad. And even with these O-line concerns for Chicago, Philip, the pass rush just hasn't been there for Carolina. So in theory, Chicago's offensive line should have an easier matchup. Hopefully it gives them the opportunity to play a halfway decent game here, a better game considering who they're up against. So I lean Bears again here this week to build on some momentum. They're 2-0 at home this year at Soldier Field. They beat Tennessee in the first week, although they did that without an offensive touchdown. Yet they still beat Tennessee at home. And then last week against the Rams. So I lean Bears here. I lean over 41 as well. It's a low number, but I'm thinking Chicago can finally get their offense to play one of their best games. Carolina can chip in just enough for maybe this game to go over 41. Philip, what do you think here, Panthers-Bears?
I completely agree with you on this one here. Panthers defense has looked trash. Bears can move the ball, obviously. I think they're doing all right. Obviously, the offensive line, some issues, but just like you said, I'm just not taking the under with the Panthers defense out there. The Red Rifle is slinging it around a little bit, so I think he can generate some points as well. So I feel very comfortable with that over. But yeah, I'm taking Bears here, 3.5 for sure.
It feels like there'll be spots to bet Carolina because they're not good. They're going to be devalued. You're going to see spots where they catch a team flat and they're going to be getting a boatload of points. To me, this is not that spot just yet for Carolina here in this one. All right, we got a good one next up in the AFC North, Baltimore and Cincinnati. The Ravens, 2.5-point road favorites, 49.5 the total. I have a feeling this is a tricky game for Baltimore. They're off the huge win against Buffalo Sunday night. We all saw it. They dominated the Bills. The offense, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, especially the run game, did a number on the Bills. And the defense, which, look, they gave up. They blew the game against Las Vegas. Suddenly, Gardner Minshew and the Raiders were moving that ball up and down in the fourth quarter against Baltimore when they came back and they beat the Ravens. We saw, obviously, Dallas when they were down big, scare that Ravens team and light up their defense and made that game interesting late last week or 2 weeks ago. And then this past week, they finally played a better game on defense, Baltimore. But they will be challenged here on the road in Cincy. Burrow and the Bengals offense now is in a lot better shape. T. Higgins is healthy again. Jamar Chase, huge game. There's still some concerns about that secondary for Baltimore. You can throw on this team. Dallas showed it. Even Las Vegas showed it. Kansas City in the opener with Mahomes certainly showed it. The question is, can Cincinnati block and protect Burrow? Because the strength of Baltimore is up front where they can get pressure. They're very good. They can be good against the run. Can they take advantage? Can they pass protect well enough for Burrow? Because if they can make some plays in the passing game here against Baltimore. And certainly they're going to have some pep in their step, right? They were 0-3 going into last week, albeit it was a bad Carolina team, but they got the first win. Now they're back home. And there's no denying that long-term in the NFL, Philip, I've talked about this a lot. Division underdogs have been a very good bet, especially division home underdogs. One of those was last week, and I cashed with it. The Chargers, they were plus 7.5 against Kansas City, and they were wire-to-wire point spread cover as a division home underdog. And we've got that right here with Cincinnati. I lean Bengals. I might grab the plus 2.5, plus 3 small, but I like them even more in a teaser. In fact, I've got one of my teasers. Is I mentioned Tampa. You can tease them up to plus 7.5 for Thursday Night Football, and you can put that with Cincinnati up to plus 8.5. So I like both of those teams, on a teaser. But I lean Bengals. This is another one where Cincinnati's not a team I'm looking to bet unders with right now. Lou Anarumo's defense right now for Cincinnati's got problems. And even last week, Carolina moved the football pretty well for a good chunk of that game against the Bengals. They've got major problems on defense. They can't stop the run. Their own pass rush has been hit or miss. Their secondary has been shredded at times. So Baltimore should be able to have some success moving the football. And the one thing that scares me about the Bengals side, even though I'm leaning that way, is that run defense, which was really, really chewed up and spit out at Washington in particular. That Washington game on the Monday night, they really struggled against the run, and we know running the football is what Baltimore wants to do, primarily with the Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson combination. So I like over more than anything in this game, over 49.5, but I do lean Bengals at plus 2.5, plus 3, division home dog. And I like the Bengals in a teaser up to plus 8.5. Philip, what do you think here for this division battle, Baltimore-Cincy?
Gosh, the AFC North, though, just sometimes freaks me out. Sometimes those games can just be gritty defensive battles. And, we're 4 games in. Everyone has some tape on each other. I do like the Bengals plus 2.5. I just for some reason can see this also just being a gritty, just a few big plays in the game. But under, for some reason, 49.5. So you know what? I like the Cincinnati Bengals plus 2.5, but I think I'm going to lean towards the under on this one. Just kind of a little surprising shock here. I think that these teams know each other. I think 4 games in, you start to kind of get a little bit of sense of what they're trying to do with tape and film and everything like that. So I think, I'm going to go Bengals plus 2.5 and under this total.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. There's always a reason for something. You said, I don't know what the reason is, but yeah, division games too often trend under, but especially the rematch games.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of that recently where the first game might go over, but then they play again later in the year, the same 2 teams in the same division, and that one will stay under.
Right,
I find the rematch unders are even stronger, but yeah, this is a high total. It is 49.5.
It is a high one. Yeah. I mean, if we're sitting closer to 45, I don't know, but 49.5, that's pretty high.
It is, no doubt. That's a great game, though, and so is this next one. Buffalo and Houston. Looking forward to this one. 1 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Bills 1-point road favorites, 47.5 the total in this game. Bills, I would expect their offense to have a better game here against the Houston Texans. We have to remember with Houston, as far as their defense, struggled with Minnesota a couple weeks ago when they lost to the Vikings. It was a Jacksonville offense that was really, really having a tough time prior to last week. And all of a sudden, here's Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars, Philip, moving the ball, for good stretches of that game against Houston's defense. So, they got to shore some things up. Even in the first game of the year, they beat Indy. They still gave up 27 points to Anthony Richardson, and the Colts in that game. So I don't think they've been at their absolute best yet on the defensive side of the football, the Houston Texans. So we'll see if the Bills can take advantage of that. They, of course, are coming off the 35-10 beatdown at the hands of the Baltimore Ravens. This is a great storyline game, too, because you've got Stephon Diggs, best buddies with Josh Allen all these years as his teammate with the Bills, and now going against him for the first time. And likewise, Josh Allen facing, obviously, Stephon Diggs now on the other side for the very first time. So that's an interesting storyline to look at. Houston, 3 straight unders, but it's because their offense has kind of sputtered. 19 points against Chicago, just 7 against Minnesota. Last week, that was tough if you had the over because it stayed under, and it was a lot of points in the first half, and it really quieted down the scoring in the second half. This one I would lean over with, but I like Buffalo from a side perspective in this one. I like good teams when they get their ass kicked, like the Bills did. And I think you could see them really come out strong, come out better. There's been some flaws on the defensive side of the football for the Houston Texans. You look at their numbers coming into this game so far this season, Philip, they're giving up, 112.8 rushing yards per game. They're giving up 161 passing yards per game. They've had some issues at times. And when you look at some of the teams they've played, they've struggled. Their defensive numbers haven't been great when they played Anthony Richardson, Caleb Williams in Chicago. Sam Darnold's playing great, Minnesota, yeah. Trevor Lawrence has had a tough year. You can make a good case this is probably the best quarterback, best offense maybe they played so far, Houston coming up, Josh Allen and the Bills. So I think it's a bounce-back spot for Buffalo. All they have to do is win the game because this is near a pick'em. They're just a 1-point road favorite. So I like Buffalo here, and I lean over the total. I think I like the side, though, more than the total in this game. Keep in mind, too, another reason why I lean over, there's still some injuries on that Buffalo defense.
Yeah.
They are injuries that definitely Baltimore took advantage of last week on Sunday Night Football. Philip, what do you think here? Bills, Texans.
You nailed it. Texans defense sputtering, Bills defense injuries, bounce back game, good team, just got their ass kicked. I think Josh Allen wants to put I think the whole Bills team probably wants to put a little emphasis on the fact that Stephon Diggs wanted out. I could see this being a high scoring game. I'm taking the over. I'm taking the Bills.
All right. Kind of looks like we got agreement there. All right. Indianapolis, Jacksonville, another division game here. With the Buffalo, Houston wasn't, but this one is Indianapolis, Jacksonville. Jacksonville 3-point home favorites, 46 being the total. I kind of have a feeling this is the spot Jacksonville wins. I really do. Like they've been. Look, I give them credit. They got embarrassed by Buffalo on Monday Night Football a couple weeks ago, and they should have beat Houston. They're up. They're leading most of that game, and of course they can't stop C.J. Stroud. and the Texans with the game on the line last week. That's a sign of a great quarterback, knows the moment, executes when the pressure's on in the critical moment. And Jacksonville fell victim of that. But there were definitely signs of improvement. Defense played better. They finally got a few stops. The offensive line held up as well as it has all year, and that's been a struggling offensive line. Poor Cam Robinson. I don't know what's happened to him at the left tackle, but he's had a tough year. He even played better against Houston as well. Trevor Lawrence took strides forward, and now you play this Colts team. Great credit to them. Great win against Pittsburgh, handing the Steelers their first loss of the season last week, 27-24. But you're likely going to have Joe Flacco at quarterback here. The old man somehow still can get it done. Anthony Richardson got hurt in that game. Joe Flacco took over, and he played well. He moved the team. They continued to put up some points, and obviously ended up putting up enough for them to win that game on Sunday against Pittsburgh. But now you got to go on the road for as many problems as Jacksonville has had offensively. Defensively, they've still played okay at times. Now, Anthony Richardson hasn't been ruled out completely yet. Okay, it is week to week with him, but it wouldn't surprise me, if this is Joe Flacco again at quarterback, they'd be a little cautious, especially because Richardson got hurt last year. That's why I'm thinking that, Philip, because he got injured last year, Anthony Richardson. You're going to try to be cautious, I think, before you rush him back this time around. So, and I know there's going to be some people out there seeing Indy +3 against winless Jacksonville saying, oh, we got to bet Indy, right? I just got that gut feel. This is the spot for the Jags. Get off the schneid, get that first win. I still need to see the Colts go on the road and play well. I can't get that Green Bay game out of my mind when Malik Willis is the quarterback. You've got every advantage. Yeah. Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, and you got absolutely, well, they only lost 16-10, but I mean, they came out terrible in that game, and they never got over the hump, the Colts, against Green Bay. And that's the only road game they've played. Everything else has been at home. They've played 4 home games and just 1 road game, or 3 home games and just 1 road game to this point. And that road game was ugly, the one they had previously against Green Bay. So I can't say I'm rushing or in love with betting Jacksonville, but I just got that sense that this might be the week they get it done. And I do lean to the Jaguars here indeed. What do you think here, Phil?
You know what? I have that same gut feeling here. Obviously they're home. They're picking it up a little bit offensively. The defense did last week give up over 450 yards or something like that, right? I mean, close to.
Yep.
The one thing that makes me a little hesitant, though, is, Dirty Joe, man, Joe Flacco, he can still sling that thing. And I think, there's just a different sense from the receivers. When I watch the Colts, when they know that Joe Flacco's in there, they're like, okay, that guy is going to take 5 steps. He's back foot's hitting and he's ripping the ball to me. So, I just feel like there's a little bit different sense of urgency with the offense with Joe Flacco in there. I did see that Anthony Richardson is day-to-day. But once again, the Jaguars, I feel like this is their time to win. So, I think, Jacksonville -3. Geez, I'd almost feel better taking them just outright money line here, but we'll see. I think I do think also with
Jacksonville's kicked this team's teeth in the last couple of years too.
Yeah,
Jacksonville's played Indy very well the last
exactly that too. And geez, I've actually been to one of those games. But you know what? Did you take the over on this one, or did you take the under?
It's tricky for me with the total.
Yeah.
Because to me, Indy's a great over team at home.
Yeah.
Not so much on the road. And Jacksonville, they're kind of more of an under team. We'll see, though.
Right,
and I think with Flacco, too, is he going to air it out deep? Right. Sometimes he does. Sometimes it's check down Charlie, though.
Right,
with Joe Flacco. And if it's check down Charlie version of Joe Flacco on the road, that's good for the under.
Yeah. You know what? This is a game I probably wouldn't put any money on, but if I had to, I'm taking Jacksonville and I'm taking the over.
All right, there you have it. All right, another division game, AFC East, Miami and New England. We've got Miami 1-point road favorites, 36.5 the total. Oh, this is an under for me. Even at 36.5, I know it's low. I know we're not getting a bargain with the under here at 36.5 for the Dolphins and the Patriots. But who's moving the football in this game consistently?
Yeah.
We know New England's offense is not great with Brissett. They don't have weapons. They don't have speed at receiver. The offensive line is one of the worst in the NFL. Although they just lost one of their best pass rushers, Jalen Phillips, out for the season for the Miami.
Oh, really?
Dolphins.
He's out for season?
Yeah, out for the season. Just a big blow to that Miami team on defense. But it may not matter here. Like the New England offensive line is just not very good.
No.
And I think even Miami here should be able to hold their own in that matchup against the New England offensive line. But are we going to trust Miami's offense? I know Tyler Huntley, who was in the Baltimore organization previously, he started a bunch of games in the NFL before getting that opportunity last week. And he probably is a little bit better than Thompson and Boyle, but not by much. And they're still missing wide open receivers. He had some opportunities to hit on some shots down the field in the vertical passing game, Phil, last week.
He's got to be the first quarterback in NFL history to overthrow Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen that before. And he took a nice big drop, took a nice hitch through that thing. I was like, oh my God, this is it. I got Tyreek on my fantasy team finally. And he overthrew it. He must have a rocket arm.
I know it's hard to do that, and yet Tyler Huntley, and I remember that. I was in the Tennessee game on Monday night and just flat out missed what should have been a touchdown if he hits him with that pass. And that's the concern. Accuracy continues to plague Huntley. He can run, he can move in the pocket. That's all the good stuff that he can bring. But accuracy and ball placement, Phil, and you know how important that is, playing the position. Ball placement, timing, and accuracy. And that's another thing, too. It felt like a guy that just got to Miami. You know, they didn't have the timing on the routes, timing of when Tyreek was going to, be there when the ball arrived in that area on that deep ball. That's all lack of reps, lack of practice with your new team. That probably played a part in it as well. I think he'll play a little better here, but look, the New England strength is their defense. Their defense is better than their offense. I know they got beat up by the Jets and the Niners offenses the last two games, New England, but this ain't the Jets offense. This ain't the Niners offense this week. Playing Miami. So nothing on the side. I don't want anything to do with the side. I think it truly is a coin flip. Either team can win it. I just think it's a low scoring. It's going to be 13-10, 16-13 for somebody. Yeah. That's what I see in this game. Even at a low total, I'll go under 36.5. Phil, what do you think?
Yep, I'm taking the under here. And you know what? I have a weird feeling. I think the Patriots are going to even pull this one out. I almost want to take the money line, get a little bit better payout here. So
I don't like the vibes from Miami. I mean, Tennessee's no great shakes. They walk in there Monday night and take it to them. Yeah.
So you know what? Under Patriots. Let's move on.
Yeah, no doubt. I would lean New England too, but I think I'm just going to stick to the under. All right, Cleveland and Washington. You've got the Commanders. What a start they've had. They are 3-point home favorites against Cleveland. 43.5 the total in this game. Cleveland, a frustrating loss for them against – this is 2 weeks in a row out of the Cleveland offense now, where against the Giants, first drive of the game, touchdown. Last week against Las Vegas, first drive of the game, touchdown, and then diddly squat pretty much the rest of the game after that. Jack shit, essentially, from that offense of Cleveland the rest of the game. Hard to fathom how the offense just stops working, after the first drive. And Sean Watson, hey, he's no good. I've said that. His best days are behind him. And we continue to see that. This O-line is just decimated, too. Let's not forget about how big of a story that is right now for Cleveland. Yeah. Both tackles, left and right tackle, did not play last week. How many times do we have to worry about Jack Conklin and Jedrick Wills every week with these two guys? And they're more likely not playing than they are. The offensive line's in shambles right now. And Deshaun Watson at this stage of his career needs a strong offensive line to be effective. And I don't think he has it now, especially if these guys aren't going to play again. Now, I do worry a little bit that Washington, the betting markets are quickly adjusting to how good they are. But I've been on them 2 weeks in a row, and I feel like at the moment, I would still rather take Washington until the betting markets catch up. Like I had them against Cincinnati, plus 8-point underdog. Monday night 2 weeks ago, they won outright. Another phenomenal offensive performance against Arizona. And that was, think about the spot too, Phil. That was on the road on a short week. Right. Going from Monday night in Cincy to the desert in Arizona on a Sunday. And there was no letdown there was no problem at all. They went there and they took care of business. So impressive. It's not easy on a short week after playing on a Monday night to play well and win and play that well. But
is Chubb coming back this week?
Who?
Is Nick Chubb?
He could. Right now, the update on that for Nick Chubb is he has been on the PUP list.
Yeah.
And he returned to practice actually yesterday.
That's what I saw.
But I don't think they're going to rush it. I still think it's going to be another week of Jerome Ford. But it's not going to matter if this O-line doesn't play better.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say. It doesn't matter,
Exactly. 100%. That's a concern. And Njoku is questionable, and we know how big in the passing game he's been at tight end for Cleveland as well. Meanwhile, the Commanders look, and the thing about this Cleveland defense last year, especially on the road, they were bad. They were actually very good at home, and they were terrible on the road. You couldn't make any sense of it. Now, this year, they struggled against Dallas at home. They struggled against the Giants at home, and they actually played better on the road on defense so far. But the two road games were Vegas and Jacksonville. Okay, you can't compare Washington and Jayden Daniels' offense right now to those two teams. This is a lot better offense. So I'm leaning Washington here at 3 or better. I'm certainly not taking Cleveland. Let's put it that way. I'm either on the Commanders or I'm passing. What do you think here, Phil? Browns and Commanders.
I agree. Washington's on a roll. I think a lot of people are starting to figure out just how good this team is. A lot of weapons. Jayden Daniels. I mean, I don't think this is the game where he's going to all of a sudden look like a rookie. He has not looked like a rookie up to this point. I'm taking Commanders -3, and the Browns need to seriously consider moving on to Jameis Winston at some point this year. I really do think that.
I may add the over because Washington's kind of an over team to me. Their defense is getting better, but it's still not great.
Yeah.
They can still make things happen. Their offense is really good, but I want to see if these tackles are back. Conklin and Wills for Cleveland on the offensive line. If they are, one or both of them are back, I might add the over as well.
I mean, 241 yards for the Browns last week. I mean, 149 passing yards and 92 rushing yards. I mean, Deshaun Watson, man, I mean, he's bringing that whole thing down, it seems like. I mean, granted, the offensive line isn't great, but that's just that they need to run the ball if they're going to be good, and they cannot do that right now. So, I almost feel like this could be a sneaky under game potentially because I think the Commanders can get out ahead and hold on to the lead.
Yep.
But, regardless, I'm taking Commanders here for sure.
All right, we move on to the late kickoffs. These are the late games on Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern, and we begin with Arizona and San Francisco. 49ers, 7-point home favorites, 50 the total in this game. Everyone's going to look at it and say, oh, the Niners are back. Well, it also could have been that they played New England, and New England had to travel coast to coast. I don't know. There's still a part of me that's a little leery to lay 7 here with San Francisco, although they are going to start to get slowly a little bit healthier. I mean, they've had a shit ton of injuries to deal with, especially with the skill position talent. We still know that McCaffrey's a long way away from returning. Elijah Mitchell has also been out. The good news, though, is, Samuel, Ayuk, they're back in the fold. Samuel played last week. George Kittle, now, he did play last week against New England. Questionable, though, this week again. Again, that rib injury just doesn't seem to be going away for him. We'll see if he plays. This is a tough one for me. But I'll say this with the Arizona. This is going to be the role. This is going to be the point spread range that I think they're going to make some money for their backers this year. Kind of like they did against Buffalo in week 1. When they were on the road, they were touchdown underdogs, much like they are here, and they lost by 6. They covered the number, though, against a very good Buffalo team on the road. I know they lost to Detroit at home, and they got drilled by Washington last week. But I could see them, hanging around here potentially in this game. San Francisco has owned them, 4-0 straight up, 4-0 against the spread the last 4 meetings. All 4 of those wins double digits. But, San Francisco this year, not quite that same dominant team at times. We'll see. This is interesting. I think if you like San Francisco, you put them in a teaser and just ask them to win the game. I'm a little reluctant to lay 7 here in this spot against Arizona. But boy, oh boy, that Arizona defense, just when we thought, especially with that performance against the Rams, which we're finding out was the Rams with the offensive line injuries and no Nakua and no Kupp. That's a big reason why the Arizona Cardinals held them to 10 points. We thought, wow, maybe this defense is getting better. Maybe not because, they struggled against Detroit, and, of course, they got lit up like crazy by Washington. So maybe that defense isn't back yet. Tough game overall. I would say if you like the Niners, take them in a teaser, but I'm really going to be tempted if this gets any higher than 7 to take Arizona in this spot, because I think as a road dog of a touchdown or more this season, Arizona is going to be covering some numbers in this kind of a point spread range. Phil, what do you think here? Cardinals, Niners.
So I didn't realize Fred Warner he's day to day. He might not even play.
He is. Yes, he is. Wow. On the injury. Let me just see the update on that right now, because I got the matchup notes in front of me right now as far as the injuries are concerned here. I've got Fred Warner listed as injured ankle, and yes, questionable.
Questionable. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Which so, I mean, Kittle with his ribs. I mean, the only thing that really kind of makes me a little nervous here are these injuries.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, I'm going to take history here and just know I think I like the 49ers being at home. I think they're going to start to get in a little bit of a rhythm.
They are 2-0 straight up in ATS at home. I should.
Yeah. You know, so, sure. You know, I like the 49ers here. I don't know about -7 though. I mean, I could see this being a little bit closer here, but you know, at the total 50 here, I mean, geez, if the Cardinals lay an egg, kind of how they did last week offensively, that'll mess up that points or the total here. But you know, I like the 49ers to win this game. I think that they're going to start kind of making a little bit of a comeback here, showing the world that they are that dominant team that we thought they were. As long as they're healthy, as long as they have, you know, Kittle and Warner and, you know, all these guys coming back and playing, I like the 49ers at home.
All right, like in San Francisco. All right, Green Bay Packers, Los Angeles Rams. Next up, we got the Packers, 3-point road favorites, 48.5 the total in this game. Everyone saw Green Bay get absolutely smoked by Minnesota last week, although they actually did make it interesting in the second half. Of that game, but too little too late. I mean, you can't just bury yourself like that with a horseshit first half like that and expect to win the game. But credit to Minnesota. That Sam Darnold in the offense, man, they sliced and diced that Green Bay defense in the first half of that game. They were a little bit better. They did get an interception of Darnold in the second half, and they did do a little bit better job. You know what's frustrating for Green Bay? Felt like all game they were moving the football against Minnesota. All game. And it was stopped on fourth down multiple times. It was missed field goals. They still have kicker issues. They got rid of Anders Carlson, and this new kicker here, Narveson, not liking what I'm seeing from him. He's got to make those two that he missed in the first half. Critical missed field goals for Green Bay there in that first half. But that offense, look, you're not expecting Jordan Love to be at his absolute best coming off, you know, missing a couple games. But I thought he got in rhythm. And again, they moved the ball. They just didn't punch it in the end zone enough. Yeah. Green Bay. I think he'll be in better rhythm here against the Rams. I like the over more than anything in this game. And I understand completely why the total's gone up. 44 all the way to 48.5. Yeah. So this is like a 4-point move that we've seen on the total here in this game. And I think it's warranted. You know, with Stafford, especially at home, and the Rams offense, you know, even without Kupp and Nacua, assuming they're going to miss again, and let me see what the latest is for them. It looks like, they're still out. But, you know, Tutu Atwell stepped up. You know, they still have Jordan Whittington did a good job. Kyron Williams running it. I think they're still capable of moving the ball, putting up points. The side's tricky for me. But I do lean Green Bay simply because I like teams off a blowout loss, you know, to be better. But the Rams, you know, as a home underdog and the guts that they've shown and the fight that they've shown, even with all the injuries, like coming back to beat San Francisco right here at home 2 weeks ago, not totally comfortable taking Green Bay, but I do lean to the Packers. I like the total more over the number. What do you think here, Phil? Packers, Rams.
I think you have it spot on. I like this total. I think this is going to be an explosive offensive game. I just think, honestly, that the Packers have more to lose at this point than the Rams, and I think they cannot afford to go out and fuck around in this game. I think the Packers need to come out full guns blazing here, because if they go 2-3 in the NFC North, I mean, they're going to start digging themselves a big hole here. So I like the Packers. I do like the over more than anything else, but gosh, the Rams are a gritty team, man. They are a gritty team at home. I watched
so well coached by McVay. What McVay's getting out of this group here so far this year, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's more so the fact that they're missing their top two weapons, you know, for me.
And the O-line beaten up to shit too.
And the O-line, yeah. So I mean, I'm definitely taking the over here. I agree with you there, and I do think the Packers squeeze this one out.
Yeah, that's a good game, though, in the late window on Sunday for sure. Yeah. All right, New York Giants, Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks 6.5-point home favorites, 43.5 the total in this game. So one of my favorite handicaps this past week was Monday night against Detroit, taking the Lions, taking the over. Saying Seattle's defense, their stats, they look awesome. Well, it's a product of playing Bo Nix in his first ever NFL start on the road in week 1 for Denver. It's Jacoby Brissett and a bottom-tier New England offense in week 2 that they faced. It's the combo of Skylar Thompson and Tim Boyle for an injured Tua Tagovailoa for Miami in week 3. And Seattle feasted defensively on those teams. Well, when they played finally a good offense and good quarterback on the road, Jared Goff and the Lions, what happened? They got absolutely crushed on that side of the football. Couldn't get a single stop the whole game. 42 points they give up. Detroit did whatever they wanted, threw it on them, ran it on them. Montgomery and Gibbs were big in the run game. The passing game was on point. He didn't have an incomplete pass in that game. 18 for 18, Jared Goff in the victory against Seattle on Monday night. So terrible game, but again, product of finally playing a real offense. Now, the Giants aren't as good as Detroit on offense, obviously, but I think they're a little bit better than Miami with Boyle and Thompson, Brissett with New England, and maybe Bo on his first road start with Daniel Jones in this Giants offense. So it's somewhere in between. The bottom line is I'm not ready to lay 6.5 with Seattle just yet. And the Giants, remember the last time they were road dogs, Philip, what did we see? They won outright at Cleveland just a couple weeks ago. If you're going to take the Giants, this to me is where you want them. Road underdogs, getting a little more points. And they have the benefit to Brian Dable and his coaching staff of Thursday night last week against Dallas playing their last game, which gives them more time to get ready and take that long flight out to the Pacific Northwest to face Seattle here. So I'm leaning to the G-men here as a road underdog in this game +6. I'm just not ready to lay points with Seattle in this price range because I think their defense is, which I think will be good because they've got a good defensive-minded head coach now, Mike Macdonald. He did a great job as DC with Baltimore, but it's going to take time for the Seattle defense. So lean Giants. And again, now that Seattle's finally going to play at least some more competent offenses, there probably some value with overs. And I like the Seattle offense. Like Geno Smith's playing well. Like they're going to be able, I think, to move the football themselves on offense. Kenneth Walker running it, Metcalf and Lockett in the passing game, Smith and Jigba, Bobo. They've got some nice weapons to work with, Seattle, for Geno. So I like the over as well with Giants and Seahawks. Phil, what do you think?
I like the over as well. I think, this is another one we're going to disagree on. I think this is going to be a higher scoring game. I think the Seahawks are going to handle them. Coming off a lot.
Well, we agree on the total, but not.
Yeah, but we agree on the total. Yes, the total. But I think the Seahawks are going to handle them, though. I would take Seahawks -6.5. I think they're going to beat the Giants by 7 or more. I don't see the Seahawks letting the Giants come in, across the country like that and play them close. I just don't see it. So I'm taking Seahawks -6.5 and that over.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And again, we'll see if that Seattle defense can play a little bit better. I mean, they should based on who you're facing. It's not Detroit or Jared Goff this time. Right. But like I say, I think the Giants can do enough at least offensively to keep competitive. But I do think Seattle does move the ball. You and I definitely agree.
Yeah, I could see this being like a 14-31 type game. That's 17-31, something like that.
No doubt. All right, Sunday Night Football. This was a Super Bowl matchup in the 90s. I believe it was 1996. The Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Traditional franchises going head-to-head here. Pittsburgh 2.5-point home favorites, 44 the total. Total's gone up. This total opened 42.5. It's up to 44. And look, Dallas kind of feels like an over team. Their defense has been miserable. But the offense has been very good with Dak. Well, they have no run game. That's the thing. They can't run the football. Zeke Elliott, Rico Dowdle, there's not much of a run game there. A lot of their offense is through the air with Dak to
Lost Cooks.
CeeDee Lamb. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the majority of their offense right now. And maybe the Pittsburgh defense, which we loved in the way they played in the first 3 games, but they got ripped apart pretty good by the combo of Anthony Richardson early in that game. And even when Joe Flacco came in to finish that game, I mean, the Steelers really struggled. And when you look at Pittsburgh, I think their defense is still solid. They missed Alex Highsmith, too. He's one of the great pass rush duo members with TJ Watt. You can tell they definitely missed him last week. But you look at before that, they played Atlanta to begin the year. Kirk Cousins' first game off the Achilles injury. They took advantage. Denver on the road. Bo Nix is still trying to get his feet wet in the NFL. And then the Chargers with a hobbled Justin Herbert. So they either had a rookie quarterback, inexperienced quarterback, or a quarterback that's less than 100% healthy that they played in the first 3 games. So I kind of overlooked that because I took Pittsburgh and took the L last week with them against Indy. Maybe that defense, we overrated them just a touch because they played 2 injured, hobbled quarterbacks, right? Cousins and Herbert. And then they played Bo Nix as well, who's, still trying to get comfortable in the NFL. Then they played Indy and they struggled. The one thing I'll say about Dak and the Cowboys is this will be probably one of the best quarterbacks and offenses Pittsburgh has played so far. So maybe that's what bettors are seeing, Phil, and betting the over here. But they also see that Justin Fields and the Steelers offense is getting better. They had a pretty solid game against Indy. Justin Fields is getting more comfortable. They can run it with Najee Harris. This Dallas defense hasn't been any good. Maybe this game can go over the total. I lean that way. I'm not taking Dallas in that defense on the road, though, especially with Pittsburgh off the loss last week. Tomlin's good at home, too. We know that. Pittsburgh's been a very good home team under Mike Tomlin, especially as an underdog or a short favorite like they are here. So right now I'm leaning Steelers for a side, over for a total here in this Sunday night football game for Week 5. Phil, what do you think here, Dallas-Pittsburgh?
This is a really tough one, to be honest. I really like this over. I think the Cowboys are going to come out and throw the ball around a little bit. Dak, I think, even though he doesn't have his weapons, I mean, he's obviously knows what he's doing in certain situations. And I think CeeDee Lamb, they're figuring out just feed him. I don't like the Dallas defense right now. Micah Parsons is still going to be out, if I'm not mistaken. Pittsburgh, I think like what you said though, too. I mean, Justin Fields has been getting hotter as time's gone on. So I definitely like this over. It's just picking out what's going to happen here. I don't, if the Cowboys fall to 2-3, man, that's bad. So I just think that this is kind of almost a must win for them. I think they really need this one. And I think the Steelers, last week showing how they came out versus the Colts, they're a little vulnerable, but they're at home. So, you know what? I kind of like the Steelers here. I don't, this could be a really close one. It will be a great game, but Steelers and the over for me.
Tomlin's got his flaws, but I'll trust him a little more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Good old Mike.
Tomlin.
Mike.
This is a Tomlin pick for sure. I fucking trust that guy. Wow. What a great coach.
Yeah, and look, just never a losing season in Pittsburgh. And I know playoff success has not really been there for Pittsburgh the last few years, but still to have every regular season where you're at least not a losing record, you got to be impressed with that. You got to give him credit for that for sure. And you're right about Micah Parsons, Phil.
Yeah.
He is not going to play, and that is obviously a huge loss here for the Dallas Cowboys. So again, we'll see how.
He hasn't done a ton this year, has he?
Yeah, exactly. Likely missing Week 5. Although he says if I can play, I will play. But everyone says he's doubtful.
I mean, high ankle sprains, man, are no joke. Those things hurt, but we'll see.
We'll see indeed. All right, last game, Monday Night Football, and we're back to just one Monday Night Football game this week. New Orleans Saints, Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City 5.5-point home favorites at Arrowhead. 43 the total here in this game. This one's interesting because I'm not a big Saints fan this year. I don't like Dennis Allen. I'm not a big Derek Carr fan. A lot of that offensive explosion in the first 2 weeks was playing Carolina and Dallas, 2 pretty bad defense. Well, Dallas's defense, I think, could get better eventually, but Carolina's is terrible, and they shredded them. And then Dallas, haven't been great defensively in any game yet so far this year. Oh, they were better against the Giants last week, but Giants moved the football up and down. They just didn't finish drives. They settled for field goals all night. Dallas still gave up yards. The Giants still moved the football against Dallas last week, and New Orleans carved them up. But New Orleans on offense, they moved it pretty well against Atlanta, struggled against the Eagles. But at the same point in time, this feels like a potential. First of all, how can you feel comfortable, Phil, laying points with Kansas City right now? Everything's a down to the wire, close, tight game in the fourth quarter. It's been that way every single week for the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes has talked about it'd be nice to win a game comfortably. But even last week with Justin Herbert hobbling, with the Chargers doing absolutely nothing for most of that game. Like Herbert, that struggled, and I think the injury there, the ankles hurting him. The Chiefs only gave up 32 yards rushing to J.K. Dobbins. Like, they shut down the Chargers offense, and yet they were still life and death to win that game against the Chargers. 17-10. They didn't cover the number. They needed a touchdown with 6 minutes to go to pull ahead. It's not the easiest ask right now, for as amazing as this team is, trying to win now their third straight Super Bowl, become the first modern-day three-peat in NFL history. They are having a tough time to be trusting them to win by margin. Every game's been close. The 7-point win against the Chargers, the 5-point win against Atlanta, the 1-point win against Cincinnati, the 7-point win against Baltimore, which would have been probably going to overtime or down to a 2-point lead had they, Isaiah Likely gotten a foot in bounds at the end of that fourth quarter of that Baltimore win on the opening night. So it would have been 27-26, because then they were planning to go for 2 in the win, but it was ruled that he was out of bounds. So it's not easy to ask Kansas City to win by margin right now, because every game's been tight, and they're coming off a big division win. It's an out-of-conference game. I could sense them just doing enough to win again here, even though I'm not in love with what I'm seeing from the Saints. The one thing I'll say about the Saints is, as an underdog this year, they are 2-0 against the spread. Dallas and Atlanta, they covered the closing number in both of those games. So crazy as it is to say, I maybe actually lean to the Saints here, even though I'm not a big fan of this team here, plus 5.5 in this spot on Monday night. But what do you think here, Phil? Monday Night Football, New Orleans, Kansas City.
No, I agree with what you said on that one too. I mean, I think that Saints coming off 2 straight losses, I think that they have a lot to play for here. Chiefs, injuries, things like that. I mean,
they miss Pacheco because P. Ryan and Steele. It's a hodgepodge at running back right now.
Yeah,
and let's not forget. How can I forget? Wake up, Ian. Wake up. There's a million sports going on at this time of year for me. I'm not going to remember everything, but Rashee Rice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Season-ending injury, and that is huge, because there is not a single other receiver, I think, right now on this team. And I like Worthy. Yeah. I like Justin Watson. I like Smith-Schuster and Moore. Not as much, but they're capable. But none of those guys, even Worthy is a rookie who I think is going to be really good in time, can do what Rashee Rice is. It's not even close. He's the number 1 receiver with a bullet on this team by far. And without him, that's a huge loss.
Right. And it's weird. I almost feel like the only way this over hits is if the Saints win. You know what I mean? Like, I could see the Chiefs putting up 17-ish or so, but the Saints winning. But I don't know, man. We'll have to see on this one too. I think Saints, I think they could cover the spread too, so I just think that they could hang in there just enough. Like you said, Chiefs are hardly winning, and all of a sudden all these injuries. Mahomes honestly isn't playing his best ball. I mean, obviously they're still winning, but he's not.
Yeah, he threw just one of those interceptions again last week against the Chargers early in that game. Like, where was he throwing? What was he looking at there?
I think I like Saints plus 5.5, honestly.
All right. Yeah, I actually am leaning Saints as well. And sometimes you just, you bet numbers too, not always teams. And I think, it's tricky now. Kansas, big division win, and maybe a little flat spot. Now no Rice as well for that offense. And that's probably a big reason why the total's been bet down, because that total was 46 at one point, and it's now 43 for that game on Monday night. There you have it. That's your NFL Week 5 preview. Philip Nelson, great to have you back. He'll be on more often, it sounds like, moving forward based on his own schedule. So he's doing a great job. So we look forward to having him on Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy more often. We'll try to get him on for a college football show or two as well moving forward. But let's wrap it up, Philip, with best bet for NFL Week 5. We'll go to you right now. What do you like for best bet?
Man, I know we talked about this already, but I just have this weird feeling about the Jets. I think the Jets are going to come out and win this game. So, whether you take them plus 2.5 or outright, depends on what you want. I kind of like your little idea of, taking that plus 2.5 and then putting a little bit of money on the money line as well. But I just think the Jets, they have a huge bounce back week this week. I think they have to focus up Rodgers. I mean, I've watched him his whole career, being a Packer fan. But as soon as everyone thinks the sky's falling, he seems to come out and figure shit out. So I'm taking the Jets in this game.
There we go. Everyone in the NFL world saw the Denver Broncos hand it to the New York Jets last week. And now a lot of people won't want any part of them this week. And this is when Philip Nelson says, get me on.
Yep.
Jets bandwagon, at least for 1 week. New York Jets plus 2.5 against the Minnesota Vikings over in London, England, Sunday morning. Best
Next
bet.
week I might look like an idiot, but hey, at least I have some balls.
There you go. Like I say, that wouldn't totally shock me. Like I said, and I like Minnesota a little bit in that game, but that wouldn't totally shock me if the Jets get it done. And my best bet for NFL Week 5, I'm going to go with Buffalo here near a pick 'em against Houston. I like it. I mean, I'm going to go with the Bills here. I think it was tough. There's not a lot, one game and one bet that stands out more than the rest, but I like the Josh Allen, and trying to, get one over on Stephon Diggs after getting ambushed by Baltimore on Sunday night. I think you'll see a better game. And look, Houston hasn't played their A game yet this year, and I think the Bills can get it done there. So Buffalo money line minus 115 for my best bet. There you have it, the NFL Week 5 edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. Hit the like button on the way out. For Philip Nelson, I'm Ian Cameron. Enjoy NFL Week 5 and good luck. We'll see you again next week for another edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy.